firstborn, and this affects both man and beast, and this judgment comes from the third heaven. This one, an angel, the angel of death comes. And so you have judgment coming from the first heaven, the second heaven, and the third heaven. And that's the final one. One other thing you want to make note about these 10 plagues is number 1 and 2, there's a warning associated with them. In other words, Moses comes before Pharaoh, tells Pharaoh what he's going to do. Number 3, there is no warning at all. He just does it. Number 4 and 5, there's a warning. Number 6, there's no warning at all. Number 7 and 8, there's a warning. Number 10, there's no warning at all.
We on number 10 now. Going into number 10
Yeah,
now.
we're moving.
Yeah.
So that's an overview of these 10 plagues. So look at verse 19. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying to Aaron, Take thy rod, and stretch out thine hand upon the waters of Egypt, upon their streams, upon their rivers, and upon their ponds, and upon all their pools of water, that they may become blood. Notice, not become like blood, but become blood. And that there may be blood throughout all the land of Egypt, both in vessels of wood and in vessels of stone. So apparently you can't take you can't next day when you get up, there's blood.
Yeah.
Just like the manna, remember, if you stored it, it would go bad. I'm saying that's what would happen because we know, according to in just a few more verses, that they were able to dig around the river and to get drinking water, but they'd have to work for it. And remember, this all of Exodus is a roadmap, in essence, to what the tribulation is going to be like. And in the tribulation, you're going to have to work in order to come out on the other side victoriously. Let's see. Remember that God is judging water here, or using water to judge people. There's another place where God used water to judge people. You remember that? Noah and the flood. Noah and the flood. God judged the world with water. Here, God's doing the same thing to Egypt. And it's coming again. Go over to Revelation chapter 8. And this is still future. Revelation chapter 8. That angel sounded, and as it were, a great mountain burning with fire was cast into the sea, and the third part of the sea became blood. Go over to Revelation chapter 16. Revelation chapter 16, verse 4. And the third angel poured out his vial upon the rivers and fountains of waters, and they became blood. And I heard the angels of the water say, Thou art righteous, O Lord, which art and wast and shalt be, because thou hast judged thus. And so this is a judgment that's still in the future. Thankfully, if we're saved, we won't have to live during that time. But remember, Exodus is in the Bible to show us what's still in the future, in essence. Historically, it's already passed, but doctrinally, it will still be in the future where it's applied. Okay, verse 20. And Moses and Aaron did so as the Lord, Exodus 7:20. And Moses and Aaron did so as the Lord commanded, and he lifted up the rod and smote the waters that were in the river in the sight of Pharaoh and in the sight of his servants, and all the waters that were in the river were turned to blood. And the fish that was in the river died, and the river stank, and the Egyptians could not drink of the water of the river, and there was blood throughout all the land of Egypt. And the magicians of Egypt did so with their enchantments. Okay, so here you have Moses turning the water into blood, and then just like with the serpents, then Pharaoh calls on his, Jambres and Jambres, Janus and Jambres to come out, and they take water and convert even more water into blood. And so they're not very bright. It's power. Why didn't they turn? That would have been the thing to show that their God is more powerful, not to imitate the same miracle that's just been done, but to do the opposite, to make it nullified, but they don't. They do so with their enchantments, and then it says, and Pharaoh's heart was hardened. So something with, just like we saw in our past study, something that they did affects Pharaoh's heart. That's why even today we have to be careful what we do, because that has a direct outcome on somebody else's heart, and whether it's hardened, whether it's softened, and it says, and Pharaoh's heart was hardened, not that he hardened it, not that the Lord hardened it, but Pharaoh heart was hardened. Neither did he hearken unto them as the Lord had said. And Pharaoh turned and went into his house, neither did he set his heart to this also. In other words, he didn't even think about letting them go. He didn't even consider it, is how we would say it. And all the Egyptians digged round about the river for water to drink, for they could not drink of the water of the river. Notice verse 25 is just kind of stuck in there. And 7 days were fulfilled after that the Lord had smitten the river. So it gives us the account, and it never says that Moses and Aaron went out and turned the water back into water, or the blood back into water. So apparently, and this is conjecture, so take it or leave it, but apparently, over the next 7 days, the blood was thinned out as the water's flowing, and it was eventually washed away the 7th day. It's interesting that it puts those days in there, 7 days. And the tribulation is 7 years, a day for every year, the Bible says. So there's something prophetically here. Why else would God just, I've always said it, nothing in the Bible is there just by happenstance or just because God wanted to make 25 verses. He put it in there for a reason. And so I think it draws the conclusion back to the tribulation time. The 7 days were fulfilled after that the Lord had smitten the river. Okay, we'll read down a couple verses. Chapter 8. And the Lord spake unto Moses, Go unto Pharaoh, and say unto him, Thus saith the Lord, let my people go, that they may serve me. And if thou refuse to let them go, behold, I will smite all thy borders with frogs, and the river shall bring forth frogs abundantly, which shall go up and come into thine house, and into thy bedchamber, and upon thy bed, and into the house of thy servants, and upon thy people, and into thine ovens, and into thy kneading troughs. And the frogs shall come up both on thee, and upon thy people, and upon all thy servants. And so these frogs were going to be a 100% nuisance. They were going to be in every place where people were, or where they did any kind of business. They were going to be there. Let's see. We will stop there and pick up next week in Exodus 8, verse 5. And through these plagues, we'll move a little bit faster. And so, amen. Any questions? I think that may have been a record.
Yeah, I can't believe we got that many verses.
I know, 30 verses, that's pretty good. Or 20 verses. 20 verses.